Hey, shalom. How are ya? Can you guys hear me okay? Why don't you give me a one in the chat if you can hear all right? We are live. Live for Qoheleth. This is going to be fun. You guys seeing me? Well, not me, but the screen. We're saving bandwidth, not showing the camera these days. Shalom, shalom. So today we're going to be going through Qoheleth, that's Ecclesiastes, chapter 6, verse 3. And probably 4 and 5. Those ones aren't that long, but as you can see on the screen, 3 is quite a monster. Just checking in with the folks live over on Patreon to see what's happening. Hmm. Let's see. Does it only work if we refresh? All right. Audio's good. Great. Looks like it's not updating the messages for me unless I refresh. That's kind of weird for a live. You guys let me know what's happening for you. Avinu Malkeinu ken yiratzon, ki lo yihyeh tzarot. Bi Adonai, ki lo תהיה צרות, תשלח לה את רוחך, כי אנחנו רוצים לראות את פניך. All right, so I think I'll just scan through this pretty quickly. Let's get started. I'm just going to scan it. Im yolid ish me'ah v'shanim rabot yichye v'rav sheyichyu ta yemei shanayv v'nafsho lo tishbah min hatova v'gam kevora lo haita lo amarti. Sorry, I made the resh blue by accident. Tov mimenu hanafel. Let me just fix that colorizing issue. That's definitely my bad. Let's see. I think this one. Oh no, we need white. There we go. It's a good old blue and white now. In Israel, the blue and white is like in America saying the red, white, and blue. There we go. Better. I see Harrison's. Howdy, howdy. That's good. I might just have to keep refreshing over there. Let's see. It might be because of how I'm viewing it. All right. Harrison's moving the spew tube. All right. So, because the verse is so big, I decided to break it down into 2 parts for you guys. We're going to have fun today. This is going to be a good lesson. So, here's the first part. This is Qoheleth. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verse 3a. We'll call it A because it's just the first half. And it says im, aleph mem. So if yo lead, he will cause to yalad. This is a hefil from yalad. So what's going on here? Well, a lot of times verbs that are pay yod verbs. Here's how we write that in Hebrew. A pay yod verb. Or using the more modern Christian grammar notation, Roman numeral I, pay, pardon, pay, yod, yod. So that means if the third position of your verb starts with a yod, Sometimes weird things happen. So sometimes you're going to see a pardon me, a waw there instead, right? So yalad is to birth, the hefil is to cause to birth. So that is to sire. So if yolid, he sires or he will sire, ish, that's the subject. So if a man will sire, if a man will sire, me'ah. What is me'ah? There's a there's a little town close to Jerusalem called Me'ah Sha'arim, right? Named after the Torah comment. Still here, Brenda? I'm just going to refresh over there. See if there's any fresh comments over on. Are you guys having to refresh on Patreon to see the comments? Or are they just popping up for you okay? Not seeing anybody on YouTube, so I'm assuming everybody's still over there on Patreon. All right, we'll just keep going through with this. So Me'ah is 100. Me'ah. Mem Aleph Hey. So im yolid ish me'ah, if a man will sire 100. So of course, what do you sire? Children, right? So 100 children is what's implied. Veshanim, and years. And years, so that's our noun. Our noun is years, and years are kind of weird because the singular is shana, so it's feminine, but for some reason it's got a masculine plural ending or so-called common plural ending. So shanim, years, and then the adjective is rabot. Rabot. So we have shanim, years, rabot, many, numerous, right? Like todah rabah, many thanks. What kind of thanks? Many. What kind of shanim? Rabot. Yay. The yod, of course, is he will chaya. He will live. Careful, it's not yichyeh. You might read that wrongly and miss that it's a chait instead of a hey. It's yichyeh with a hey chait there. So he will chaya, he will live. So im yolid ish, if a man will sire mea, 100, veshanim rabot, and many years, yichyeh, he shall live, the rav, an abundant or numerous, sheyichyu, she, of course, to remind you, this is a late biblical Hebrew feature. You will not see this in the Torah. She is short for asher, the relative pronoun. Asher. For you visual learners, I've colorized it so you can see the sheen is what remains. You lose the aleph and you lose the resh. And then, interestingly enough, sometimes you do actually get like a little dagesh. Not always, but sometimes in the next letter. So that's kind of interesting. That is our resh going in there. See that? What's going on? So let's see. I'm not seeing new comments. Not seeing new comments on Patreon. Okay, everybody moved over to YouTube. That's fine. I see a bunch of you over on YouTube. Great. Yeah, this can be the way we can do it. Maybe this will just be our policy for these lives from now on. We will just use Patreon to conceal the link, right? So that only those here at Levite Steps tier can watch it. and then we can maybe go on over and meet at YouTube for the chat. The only thing that's sad is we won't see the chat history later. But if Patreon's doing us wrong, then okay. Do you guys hear me? YouTube's complaining about my audio. Just want to make sure everything's okay. While I'm waiting on that, I'll just share with you I'm having a hot tea, although it's cooled down a bit now. Kosher English Tea Shop Organic, cinnamon, moringa, and ginger. And I steamed up some milk. I don't usually put milk in there, but I was out of almond milk, so I did some milk today, well, tonight, and added some sugar-free caramel syrup, just a teaspoon in there of that, maybe a teaspoon and a half. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Good. Glad you guys hear me all right. I'm so glad to be here with you live today. It's probably going to be a bit longer today. Yeah, fancy schmancy. I wasn't sure what flavor of tea to do. I wanted to do English breakfast. I just like that taste better, but it's nighttime and I had crazy insomnia last night, so I couldn't sleep until the sun came up. So I just figured maybe we ought to do that. Do what I can to manage that. All right. Raise your hand if you're an insomniac like I am. So, she, which, you. So that's from the verb haya. That's from haya. And you see what happened? We have the hay is there and the yod is there, but the final hay went away. He's gone. Gone. So lots of stuff happening, yod becoming wavs, or you can think of them as just disappearing. The aleph and the sheen going away from asher and it's joining in. But again, by the way, there's an interesting field called diachrony. Diachrony. And I've got a couple books on this, but I haven't gone through them all, just a little bit here and there and looking for stuff. Kind of cool. You just know your own over time. Like when you read through the Tanakh several times in Hebrew, after a while, you'll be like, hey, I never see she prefixed in the Torah, right? Or other things like that. And so you can kind of almost date the text by how the nuances, I mean, well, by how the, the, the dialect of the language does some special things. So that's kind of cool, which is also it's that unlike some of the attacks on the Bible had claimed, oh, it was all written over about the same period of time, not possible with all the array and variants of language we have in there. So, yeah, the drink of the day. Maybe I should do a channel drink of the day. That one will. I've been thinking of. It's just hard with time. I've been thinking of doing a channel Solar Rabbi because one of my hobbies is DIY solar, and with it goes DIY soldering, and I'm not the best repair guy and I'm a terrible handyman. Like it takes me 10 times the time that it takes a good handyman to do his stuff. Although part of the reason I don't have all the tools, right? So but and nobody taught me, so that also. So I was thinking maybe I could do that, just kind of maybe that could help supplement. Well, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think if you'd be interested in that kind of like I you know I tore down and fixed a tablet screen like a year ago, and I recorded it just for the heck of it. Yeah, maybe that stuff that could help some people. Like I didn't see any videos on this particular one out there, so maybe it'd be helpful. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It's I don't like to take away from the biblical teaching stuff if not necessary, but thinking about Solar Rabbi, maybe pushing the Solar Rabbi channel. We'll see. All right. Continuing on. I lost my mouse. It's not playing. Wait. I saw it. Come back. There we go. Okay. She, which, you, there will be. What will be? Here's the subject. Construct chain. Da Yemei Shaniv. That's the Yamim of his Shanim. So, because it's definite, we say the days of his Shanim, years. The days of his years. I had this thought life. I don't know if I said life out loud. Sorry about that if I did. Not much time, Brenda. Not much time. If I do that, I'll have to cut a couple probably Hebrew lessons or something. I don't know. We'll see. But it's about keeping the stuff alive, since we're only like halfway towards our goal of where we need to be by September to keep this show going. So, yeah, so I'm considering other options that wouldn't be totally time consuming. Because if I go back to programming, yeah, we'll have a lot of money, but programming, especially for senior programmers or software architects like I used to be, um, you just there's no time for anything at all except maybe sleeping on Sabbath. So I was thinking maybe that would be another, maybe there's more people out there interested in DIY solar and electronics and that kind of stuff, programming, doing little inventions, making programming microcontrollers to make little robotic things or what. I don't know. Just kind of thinking there's a that might be flooded already. Anyway, continue on. She, which yichyu, they shall be, or they are, Yamei Shanaiv, the days of his years. Very poetic. Okay, that's really kind of the end of the thought here before we go to part B. And then we're going to continue with the Venafsho and his soul or his appetite or his mind or his throat. Or it could be a lot of stuff. So let's go back through one more time and you translate before I do. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question, Harrison. A lot of times he's up at night, right? You can stay up, right? Pray for me, disciples. It's so important. That's interesting. I never thought of that. Never thought of that. I wonder if King David was. There's some traditions that at midnight, or not midnight, I'm sorry, Mitternacht, like technically the middle of the night, not 12, but like the actual middle of the night, that he used to go out and play the harp and such and compose music. And that if he ever fell asleep, the tradition is that Ruach HaKodesh would wake him up by the wind, which is a nice play on words, right? The Ruach, the wind or the spirit, would strum his kinor, and that would wake him up, right? So he'd leave it hanging out on the balcony. Could you imagine being back there hearing David Hamelech coming out at night on his balcony and just making music? He's so wonderful. Okay. Im, Aleph Mem, if, Yolid, Ish, a man will sire Mea, 100, Veshanim Rabot, and many years, Yichyeh, he shall live, Verav, and numerous or abundant, She, Yichyu, Da, Yamei Shanaiv. So Verav and numerous, She, are or shall be the days of his years. Okay, continuing on. Venafsho, and his soul, his life force, his appetite, those sorts of things. Oh, that's interesting. Harrison says Abba wakes him up at 3 a.m. often. This used to be the more natural way, actually. If you read journals and such and diaries, I learned this from a YouTube channel and I checked out. It was true. I can't remember the channel, otherwise I would recommend them. Sorry about that. But there was one of the history channels I was listening to. Oh no, I know what it is. It's Thoughty 2. Thoughty 2. Like a thought, Thoughty 2. I learned it from him and then I kind of investigated if it's true. So it used to be before there was electricity that people slept twice. So they'd sleep soon after it got dark, and then they would wake up, like you're saying, Harrison, around 3 a.m., 4 a.m., right? Which at certain times of year is the middle of the night. And then they would do some tasks for a couple hours, do some things, sometimes under candlelight, read the Bible or whatever, and then go back to sleep. Isn't that interesting? So people always talk about you need your 8 hours sleep and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that's all good, but it's interesting that only since the invention of electricity has that been the norm, it seems. It seems. I mean, of course, we don't have detailed records of people's sleeping habits back in the day, but maybe the tradition about King David is kind of a hint about it too, right? So very interesting. The final watch. Good. Yeah, you study scripture, then that's good. Yeah, especially if Abba wakes you. Okay, let's continue. Then off. Oh, that's right. I had a comment here. Sorry. So this is from Gianto. Progeny and long life might be thought sufficient to make life worthwhile, but in fact, do not. Only actual satisfaction can offset the unhappiness of existence. Wow, that's so powerful. I want to repeat his observation based on Qoheleth. Progeny, having mea, having 100, right? And long life might be thought sufficient to make life worthwhile, but in fact do not. Only actual satisfaction can offset the unhappiness of existence. As a Mesopotamian wisdom book asks rhetorically, quote, a gloomy life, literally a life without light, what advantage does it have over death? Yeah, and I would just add to this. I don't know how many of you remember my teaching on the Messiah's saying that he came that we might have life, and it's usually translated abundantly. And I shared with you that actually, in my understanding, a better translation there is what kind of life should we have? Significant. Lives of significance, right? In other words, becoming the gardener back in Gan Eden, becoming the Tselem Elohim, right? Acting as his agent, actually doing his will. Only in that way do we really find meaning in life and satisfaction through fulfilling our destinies, our goralot. Okay, this is the second half of the verse. So, Qoheleth chapter 6, verse 3b, and maybe I'll put that on the screen for you note takers. 3b. Okay. Lamed Aleph, not Tish, pardon me, Tishba. I did that the there's so many. When I see the scene, I often think of it as Sheva. So I'm pardon me, Sheen, and I was thinking this was like Sheva. So lo Tishba, to be satisfied. So she will not be satisfied, or you will not be satisfied. Why is it she? It is she actually here. It's not saying you. Why? Because the last part of the verse we ended with nafsho, and nefesh is feminine, even though it doesn't look like it. It is feminine. Oh, cool. Harrison said people used to visit each other as well and have tea and such. That is so cool. Yeah, the second sleep. That's right. The second sleep. Exactly. And actually, there do seem to be evidences of this, in the Bible as well. We have like shimurim, which are various watches, like Harrison alluded to the watches, the night, and there's also sometimes translated night vigil, right? So, I mean, that could just be guards doing this, but we do seem to have little hints that that was more natural before we blue lighted the heck out of our retinas. So, lo, not tisba. He, or rather, she will not be satisfied or satiated, meaning the nefesh. The soul, probably appetite here. Min, from hatova, the goodness. Min hatova, the goodness. Meaning on account of the good things, right, that we already went through. The mea banim, right, the 100 children. And the omim, the Rabbi Fox says, no matter how many the days of his years may come to, this complaint shows that what troubles Qoheleth is not life's brevity so much as the failure to achieve something worthwhile during one's lifetime. Let's continue. Vegam, and also, kevura, kevura. So I just pointed out the u there. It's from the verb kava, which is to bury, like to bury in the ground. Kevulah is like a grave or the place of. Yeah, usually the word for grave is kevel, so this is a little bit different. Like usually, it's. I'll write it for you. It's a segalit, so if you're just listening, kevel. That's usually grave. So this is kind of interesting, like being buried. It looks like a passive participle, right? Being buried. So it could even be referring back to the nefesh, right? The gam, and also kivullah, being buried, right? Or because it's feminine. So that's something I didn't notice till just now that it could be referring back to the nefesh. So that's interesting. Now it could be like a special kind of kever. And this is a comment I wanted to share with you that oh, the Hebrew scholar shares. He writes, Qoheleth is likely mocking the fool's complaints of not securing a prestigious burial site. I owe this delightful observation to, oh yeah, so Kevorah. So I thought that's kind of cool. That's why the weird way to write kever. Like there might have been a time in the late biblical Hebrew period where a kevorah was something that a wealthy person would buy. You know, like those monument type sites. They want to fame. I want to live forever, right? You know, like the whole Shem Gadol, having a great name, a great fame, like the pharaohs. Why did they build the pyramids? To conduct energy for the alien landing pad. No, it's a grave. That's their grave. There's a burial room inside of those pyramids. So that's why it's to live forever, right? To let your and so I really like this what Seo is saying that it seems like Qoheleth is mocking the wealthy ones who are so concerned, have this complaint. I haven't even gotten a kevurah yet, right? A buried yet. Let me just check in over on Patreon to make sure nobody's over there wondering where is everybody. Oops, I made a mistake. I go back. I accidentally went to the wrong screen. Let's see. Hold on. Where are you? There we go. Okay. Last thing I saw was Brenda saying you guys still here. Refreshing. Okay, that was it. But I don't have to keep checking and then. Are you guys still here in the chat? Actually, I'm not seeing chats anymore over on SpewTube. Give me a shout out if you're still here. All right, continuing on. Okay, thanks, Brenda. V'gam, and also a kevurah lo not haita. She, he, she hasn't acquired lo for him, meaning the nefesh. Haita here's the feminine. She hasn't had it, right? Amati. Oh, I did it here too. Look at this. Hold on, let me fix that. We'll just make it the blue and white. How about that? Feeling pretty patriotic lately. Amati. I said, Tov, good, mimenu. So that's min, the noon one inside the second mem. So mim menu. So good, tov, mim from nu, from him or it. Now remember we talked about some time back about the mem of comparison, the mem of comparison. That's how you make things different degrees, like happy, happier in English, right? In Hebrew, you'd say happy from such and such, right? So in this case, tov, good, tov min is gooder, right? Which of course we say better. Oh yeah, there's only three in here, huh? Well, I guess we lost Jeff. I know sometimes he has to drive to work, so he's probably listening to us. Yeah, ever since I locked it behind the Patreon tier, the Levite steps, we miss people sometimes. What about Gary? Gary's at that level. Maybe he's driving the bus today. Sorry, just no choice. We gotta make this work. Gotta make it work. Okay, great, Jeff. Good. So tov, good, mimenu, from him means better than him or it. What is the it? Han nafel. That's the nefel, actually nefel, but it's just because the suluk there has lengthened the to ah. So nefel became nafel. Now this is kind of an interesting word. I'm going to talk about it more on the next. Of course, nafal is to fall, right? So it's like that which is fallen is a nefel. So let's read through 3b again, and you do your best to translate before I do. Lo tishba. Not she is satisfied. Who's the she? The nefesh, right? Min hatova, from the goodness. So not satisfied by the good things. Vegam, and also, and here comes the silly complaint, kivra lo haita lo, a prestigious grave she hasn't acquired yet for him. Amakti, I said, tov mimenu hanafel. It's better than, and the idea is, the hint is like about the fate or the end, the sof of the nefel, of the nefel. And that's what we're going to talk about when I go to the next slide, okay? Everybody okay? Ready for next slide? When we go live, we usually get a bit more. I like to get more in Qoheleth too because I know you guys really like Qoheleth. All right, so here's the comment. The force of Ha Nafel, the stillborn, it can mean the stillborn, right? That which fell out, right? Or the fallen man continues from the previous verse here, right? So there could be a little play on words happening there. And I wanted to share with you, we find a similar phrase in Mishlei 6b. That's Proverbs 6, pardon me, 6b, 6 verse 5b. I'm reading my own thing kind of weirdly, where it says Nafel Eshit, or da Nafel Eshit. Bain Chaz, pardon me, Bal Chazu Shamish. It's so small on my screen. A Nafel Eshit is that which is fallen from a woman. Baal is an older way of saying lo, not Chazu doesn't see Shamish, Shemish, the sun. Right? So in biblical Hebrew, if you say to see the sun, that means to live. It's an idiom for to live. Lirot et ha Shemesh, to see the sun. Right? Or in this case, la chazot, it's chaza, chet, zayin hey, which is like to gaze at the sun, which who does that without special dark glasses? So, though even here the Talmud challenges and says Eshut zo instead of Eshit, because remember the Talmud's written before we had the Nikodim, right? The Nikodot, the vowel markers. So instead of Eshit, it's assuming Eshut zo. This is Eshut, which means a mole. This is a mole, the animal that goes under the ground. Even though it is no proof, this is still the Talmud, not me. It is an indication, like a stillborn mole never seeing the sun. So it's kind of interesting. So a naphel still means stillborn there. So the stillborn of the Eshut, which would make some sense because why does it say Eshut? It should be Isha, right? So I think, by the way, this is from the Jerusalem Talmud, Moed Katan. Okay, page 1, paragraph 4, section 2. So it probably is a stillborn, right? Especially saying Baal Chazul Shamash, not seeing the life, not seeing the sun, both literally and also meaning not living. By the way, any of you who have dealt with the tragedy of losing an unborn child or even a living child, yeah, that's may Hashem heal your heart. May He lishloch alecha or alaych kafur shelema belevavech o belevavecha. Speedily and soon, bimcheira. All right, verse 4. So this is now Qoheleth chapter 6, verse 4. Hiva hevel ba uva choshech yelech uva choshech shemo yechuse. All right. Why is that red? That should have been green. What happened? What happened? Why is key red? You're not an article. What are you doing? Oh no, it's Christmas color. You got to be careful not to mess with people's Christmas. I remember I was teaching a Hebrew class years ago here in the Philippines. I was this one church let me come in and teach them. They had a bunch of people there. The people in the ministry were learning Hebrew, and some of the people from the congregation as well. And they really liked it. They loved coming to Hebrew class and all that stuff. And one time I made the fatal mistake of talking smack on Christmas, about Christmas. Never invited back again. Oops. Oops. That was over in Tai Tai or Benong, one of those places. You know who you are if you're listening. Never invited back again. Sadly, that the congregational leader there is passed on. May they rest in peace. All right, let's see. Continue. Oh, by the way, I didn't mean that like as a vengeance. Okay, just okay. Key 4. Va hevel. But in or with the hevel, the vapor. Ba. He arrived. Like with futility, I think is probably what's meant here. I'm gonna write that out. Futility feels right. Futility. By the way, I really appreciate you guys, my patrons. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting what I do. Okay, no problem, Harrison. Go have fun. Kiva hevel ba, for it is futilely, or with futility, ba, he has arrived. This is, of course, the Nephil. U and va with the. See, we have the ha disappeared there, and the bait took his place. Ushich, for in the darkness, with the darkness, Yelich, he goes, or into the darkness he goes. Kiva, for with the vapor, air in a vapor ba he came. Futilely he arrived. Uva choshech, and into the darkness, Yelich he goes. This is all about not seeing the Shemesh, right, too, so it's not saying that, like, the unborn child is going to be living in darkness or something like that. Qoheleth is actually very careful not to postulate about Olam Haba, right? That's kind of outside the bounds of this Sefer. Uva choshech, and into the darkness, or with the darkness, is Shemo, his fame, his reputation, his power. Yechuse. So you know the verb kaf samech he, it's to cover. And the PL, kise, is to cover over. This is where we get the word machse, a tablecloth, right? Something with which you kise, you cover over, right? But this is pu'al, which means it's intense, so to completely cover over, and it's passive. So yechuse, he is completely covered over, meaning the name. Shemo, his name is completely covered over. So uva choshech, and into the darkness, or with the darkness, by means of the darkness. Shemo, his name, Yechuse, is completely covered over. And that just, I wasn't really sure exactly what Qoheleth meant by that, but it just came to me now. Because we don't name the unborn, do we? At least in Judaism, we don't name the unborn. Right? Part of that is not being foolish about the Ayin Hara, right? The evil eye and such. Just like people, if you're in your first trimester, don't tell people you're pregnant, okay? Don't go around blabbing that you're pregnant. There's a lot of Jewish wisdom about this, that it's best to keep it to yourself for the first trimester, the first 3 months, to reduce any concern about ayin hara, the evil eye. Okay. If you don't know what the evil eye is, don't flame me in the comments, please. Ask. It's not a wicked spirit or something, okay? Floating, an eye floating. I think the Turks think it's something like that. Yeah, but there's various cultures that have weird ideas of what they call the evil eye. But it's really a legal issue in Yiddishkeit. Okay. Should I do another? Let me see. Let's finish 5 real quickly, all right? Verse 5. I didn't. That's fine. Gam shemesh lo ra'a velo yada nachat lazeh mizeh. Gam, also, shemesh, sun, lo, not, ra'a, did he see? Right? So it does literally mean he never gets to see the sun, right? But also it means he doesn't get to live. Velo, and not yada, nor does he know. Probably feels like learn something there. or even know what happened. Nachat, nun, chet, tav. The root is noach, to rest. Rest, right? Nachat actually means rest. Lazeh, for this, mizeh, from that. Like he doesn't understand that from that. There might be an English idiom that would fit better for that. So I'm going to go back and read I'm going to read all these verses for you, just with normal reading, and do your best to understand. Qoheleth, chapter 6, verse 3. Im yolid ish me'ah, v'shanim rabot yichyeh, v'rav sheyichyu yemei shanayim, v'nafsho lo tzba min hatova, v'gam kevora lo hayta lo, amarti tov mimenu hanafel. Verse 4. Ki vahevel ba, uvachoshech yelech, uvachoshech shemo yechusei. Verse 5. Gam shemesh lo ra'ah, velo yada' nachat lazeh mizeh. All right, guys. Thanks for being here, especially those of you who are live. Those of you who couldn't make it live, please give me a shout out in the comments over on Patreon. All right? Because that's the only place you'll be able to find this video, over on Patreon for my Levite Steps peeps. Thank you so much for being at the Levite Steps level. I will catch you all on Shabbat. Shalom, shalom.